Okay, well, we all know that a part of life there is death. And it can be difficult for a lot of us to face, especially if we have experienced losing someone or being there when someone was ill. But wouldn't it be more difficult to see this loved one of ours just slowly lose themselves with a terminal illness and almost become unrecognizable? And personally, I think that'd be extremely difficult to see, which is why a new form of assisted suicide is on the rise, and it's called death with dignity. And I'm sure this sounds like a morbid topic, but I think it's important for everybody to be aware of it. I would like to illustrate the benefits of death with dignity, and I'm going to share more detail on what it entails when it has become a law and address the common misconceptions. First, according to the Death with Dignity National Center, death with dignity allows mentally competent, terminally ill adult state residents to voluntarily request and receive a prescription medication to hasten death. Now, basically what that says is if a person, let's say, has like pancreatic cancer and they know they viewed all their options and they just want to die peacefully, this law gives them the right to get a prescription medication for them to do that. It gives them the right to, as it says, die with dignity. They won't lose themselves, and their family members won't have to watch them lose themselves. But with this, when this act becomes a law, there's requirements and there's rules that one must follow. The requirements in order for you to be eligible for this law is that you must be 18 years or older, a resident of the state you're in, and capable of making health decisions and diagnosed with a terminal illness with 6 months or less to live. If you meet those requirements, the steps you must take to use this medication is you must make a verbal request to your doctor and then wait 15 days at least until you make your second verbal request, and you make a written request to your doctor as well. And after that, you wait 48 hours before your doctor is allowed to prescribe you the prescription. And after you get the prescription, it's your choice to go to the pharmacy and pick it up. After that, your life is in your own hands. It's all up to you. And I'd like to talk about a woman named Cody Curtis at the age of 52 who decided to utilize this law. She was diagnosed with, bear with me, cholangiocarcinoma, which is a cancer of the bile duct, which is located in your liver. For her, she was able to do a surgery, which they did, but during the surgery, there were some difficulties, and it caused a year-long of recovery. And shortly after her recovery, her cancer not only came back in her liver, but spread to her lungs and to her lymph nodes. After viewing her options and knowing that it's very unlikely she would be able to live 3 years at the most, and she decided to use death with dignity and go and get the medication. She went through all the steps, she met all the requirements, and it gave her the power to say goodbye to her loved ones on her own time, to say goodbye as who she is now. They're not going to remember her husband, and her kids aren't going to remember her in her last months of living as somebody bedridden and hooked up to a bunch of machinery. They're going to remember her as his wife, their mom, as how she's always been. Her story can be heard on the documentary How to Die in Oregon, which is the state that she lived in, and which is one of the 2 states that the act has become a law, the other state being Washington. The act itself is nationwide, but only these 2 states have recognized it as a law, and it begs the question, why hasn't the other questions looked further into this concept? And according to procon.com, 47 states see this idea of pharmaceutical-assisted suicide as a felony, and in some cases, first and second-degree murder. And a lot of common misconceptions that people have with this, the most popular being that death with dignity is related to euthanasia. And the National Center of Death with Dignity stresses that this is false, that euthanasia is ambiguous in its terms, that it's easily misinterpreted, that a person could have been forced to choose this route of death, whereas death with dignity has very strict guidelines and requirements that I have gone over. So that one, there is a difference. A second misconception is that the doctors will lose motivation into finding cures, into helping you prolong your life. The National Center states that doctors, as a result, work harder to prolong patients' lives and enhance quality of life while respecting the patient's final wishes when their suffering becomes intolerable. For me, it's kind of ridiculous to think doctors will just use death with dignity as a crutch. They've taken an oath to save lives, not just hand it off to, oh, I don't want to try and help you right now, I'm dizzy. But, so I think that's a ridiculous misconception that some people have. But another misconception that I'd like to address is that people feel that there is no lessons that death with dignity doesn't have a need in society because of advancement in with medical treatments. And in some cases that can be true, but as the National Center states, that 5% of people that are given these medications, it has no effect on them. They still suffer, they still feel the pain. So just because 5%, just a small amount, does that mean we can rule them out? They shouldn't have an option to ease their pain, to have their right to have dignity towards the end of their life? I don't think so. That 5% still counts in my book. But in the end, we must all face the realities that death is inevitable. It's going to happen either way. But for the people who were diagnosed with these terminal illnesses, they should at least have an option to choose death with dignity. It's not a requirement. They don't have to do this. It's just an option that could give them a peace of mind, that could help their families cope with the situation that they're in. And to learn more how to support this cause in your state, you can visit deathwithdignity.com. Thank you.
Brenda, you here?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that the topic was really interesting, and the way you addressed it was really clear. You have good eye contact with everybody, and you can read from your notes about your sources were well introduced, and I think you did a good job by answering the opposing point of view.
Okay.